Everybody, Jason Wood here, the VA loan guy. Thank you for tuning in today to another episode of the Armed and Ready podcast. Today's guest is Matt Booth, Marine Corps veteran, and he's got a really cool business that he's running as an entrepreneur. So I'm very excited to dig into what he's up to. I think this fits really well with a bunch of me and my friends and kind of our passions and likes and stuff like that. So Matt, thanks a lot for coming on the show, man. How are you?
Oh, no, thanks for having me. I'm honored. I'm doing well. Thanks for asking. How are you doing?
Doing good, man. Keeping busy. This, in the mortgage business, seems like we never sleep. We're jamming right now, which is a good thing.
Good.
During this COVID thing, a lot of businesses are struggling, but we're doing okay. So we're blessed. We're fortunate in that sense.
Right.
How are you guys doing with the pandemic and everything in your business?
Well, this has been an interesting exercise, right? Because, two of the three arms of our business, as they traditionally function, in a sense, either are currently or have been for the majority of this time frozen, and so, for example, in the jewelry component of our business, we manufacture to order in our studio in downtown Los Angeles, and you can't really provide a made to order product when you're not permitted to make to order it, right? So, and similarly, in the tobacco component of our business with our cigar brand, import export was frozen. All the production facilities in Honduras and the Dominican all shut down. Even as an example, last Monday, Honduras was allowed to reopen, and then they were immediately closed within hours of their reopening because they weren't complying with, distancing guidelines. They were allowed to reopen with some additional rules in place for safety, right? And, they got shut down the day they reopened. So with all that said, in the entrepreneurial spirit, what do you do when you're frozen? You have to adapt, and you have to shift. And as an example, and this was trickle down, right? Because it wasn't just at a factory level for product as it applies to that industry, but also retail lounges, cigar bars, all closed, or some remained open as the alcohol component of their business deemed them essential, but with restrictions, my partners and I put our heads together and said, okay, what do you do in the handshake business when you're forbidden to shake hands? And how do we drive some sales to our brick and mortar partners that desperately need help at this point? All are impacted. It's just how many, at what stage or at what level are they impacted, And so we had been tinkering with the concept of our own podcast / digital broadcast through our own custom built platform. And we put the development into into gear 5. And within 4 weeks of the shutdown, we were running our first digital event. And although tobacco is a regulated product, as long as our retail partners transacted, with their customers and remained responsible to all the applicable, state taxes, fees, et cetera, we were allowed to, as a courtesy, drop ship the merchandise for them. So from our warehouse in Naples, Florida. So we actually ended up selling about, I think it was somewhere around 15 times what the volume from your standard in-store activation would be, and incorporated retailers from all around the country simultaneously, some of which were actually locked out of their businesses, that their businesses were shuttered, and so we were able to provide a benefit, not only for our company, but first and foremost for, our brick and mortar partners that were suffering. So, that's an example of pivot, right? So
yeah,
that's I was maybe I'm running on a bit, but that's
no. I think it's good. we kind of dove right into it, but tell us a little bit about your business. And I know you guys are men's jewelry, fashion accessories, premium tobacco and alcohol. You know, what's the name of your company, and tell us a little bit about the business kind of at a surface level.
So the brand is called Room 101,
Okay.
and it is, you know, my vision for this lifestyle collection was very simple, and is still very simple. It's to be the 2020 version of a European jet set luxury brand from the 1950s. So the Alfred Dunhill of 1950, but realized in 2020 with modern stylization, design direction, you know, however and whenever appropriate and on brand. And of course, without perverting the craft basis of our products, right? So, because sometimes you can get a little carried away with technology. So we're trying to do our best to keep the old school alive over here. So we currently offer made to order jewelry, made in our, like I said, in our studio in downtown, premium cigars, and craft gin, round out our current item offering.
That's really fun. I got to imagine, I mean, I know some of my neighbors and stuff, even during the COVID shutdown, we're all still kind of spending a little time together, probably maybe breaking the rules a little bit, but keeping our 6 foot spacing. But, you know, we've had a cocktail and a cigar and stuff. And I think I got to imagine, you know, that quite a few other people are doing that. I mean, there is some downtime, you know, we're all affected. Oh, yeah. We're not in the normal environment and the same hustle and bustle that we used to be. So it's probably really appropriate. You know, I'm new into kind of the cigar connoisseuring thing, and so I'm interested to hear a little bit and learn a little bit about cigars from you. And you know, what could you teach somebody that's kind of new into cigars that is not quote unquote an aficionado on this stuff? And how do you guys fit that your segment?
Perfect. Good question. So if you could relate this to something else in terms of trend, when I entered the cigar business, the premium cigar business in 2009, something very similar to what had occurred in the beer business was beginning to rear its head in premium tobacco. So very akin to what happened with craft beer. Right. Was this trend wave was beginning to emerge in premium tobacco. And it was, you know, a modernized spin or a modern spin on product style, trade dress, even non-traditional blend formulas. You know, essentially cigars have been and forever will be handmade art. But, you know, a lot of these younger brands, including ours, paint outside the boundaries of tradition in many ways, you know. And so in that same vein, I would suggest that, you know, if someone was approaching actually anything that we do, any category we're active in, but as it applies specifically to our cigar business, you know, to just go in with an open mind, not be intimidated. You know, none of this is rocket science. You know, it's about enjoying yourself. Right. It's about, you know, and I believe there's a spiritual and a meditative component to cigar smoking specifically. And, you know, you can, yeah, and there's also a very social component to it, you know, to sit down and to enjoy a smoke and a conversation with a couple people is always a great time. It's a great equalizer, you know.
It is.
And yeah, I mean, you know, the guy or gal that just sold their company is sitting with the, you know, blue collar worker, is sitting with the entrepreneur, and so on and so forth around the table, and having a productive and engaging conversation. And many times people that would have never had any calling to be connected otherwise, or even if they were put in a room with one another, would not engage the way they would that they do over a cigar. So my suggestion is to run towards it with open arms, man, and embrace it, because it's a beautiful little world. It really is.
Yeah, that's cool. I think there's a lot of truth in that with the cigar thing. And so you ventured into gin also. And I know we were
that's correct
a little bit offline. I'm not much of a gin person. Well, one thing I know with any kind of spirit is high-end spirits are the better ones. And, you know, especially when you're doing a martini or something like that. So tell me how you guys got into gin. I mean, it fits really well with your brand and what you're doing, but how did that all come to life?
Well, you know, what's interesting about our foray into craft spirits and gin specifically is, you know, by the time I became active in that space, you know, we were very well established in premium tobacco, and gin, quite frankly, is the anti-spirit, or at least stereotypically understood to be the anti-spirit for a cigar smoking experience, right? And I was very intrigued with the proposition of adding craft spirits, specifically gin, to our lineup because, you know, manufacturing wise, keeping the quantity, the volume intimate as we do with our other categories, fell in line with our brand philosophy, and also to kind of challenge people to enjoy themselves, to be a little provocative, right? Gin was very much on brand for our branded business, and from first glance may have not seemed the appropriate companion to our cigars, but quite frankly, because of the versatility of gin and the way that it, you know, you can blend your botanical mixture 100 different ways. You know, it's very versatile. You know, we were able to build a formula that was very complementary to a smoking experience. So, does that adequately answer your question?
Yeah.
I got myself off track. So many details I'm trying to juggle here, man.
No, that's okay. I mean, it's interesting. I mean, there's so many people in has started like the home brewing, you know, for beer and the craft brewing. And I know a lot of people kind of do it with wine and with vodka, even kind of make it at home. So I've never attempted to do anything like that. So just kind of learning the how-to, you know, like how do you put this stuff together and actually come up with something and determine like how many times it needs to be distilled and, you know, and just the different processes and stuff. That to me is kind of fascinating because it's, you know, peeling back the curtain, you know, as the consumer, we just see it on the shelf in the store, right? But in each brand of whatever spirit or wine or beer or whatever has a whole different process that it goes through behind the scenes, which makes them all taste different, right? So I'm always curious to learn a little bit about that part of it.
Well, and it was a really exciting process for me to be involved in, because I am extremely hands-on with everything that we produce, and, you know, working with the master distillers that we partnered with to create this gin, I was able to authentically participate in the blending process because of my cigar mouth. I mean, I've been tuning my palate, you know, as a casual cigar enthusiast, the majority of my life, but professionally for almost 12 years, which is a very different level of smoking, you know, and focus, you know, and concentration. And that came into play tremendously during the blending process of our gin. I didn't necessarily speak their language, so to say, but you know, I could identify as an example during the process, hey, why is this note hollow here? Why is this present in this version of this formula and absent here? What did you change? What's going on? And I think that I definitely earned a little bit of their respect. And it's always, I mean, it's always healthy if you know, if the brand owner is authentically vested in the, oh, sorry, somebody was trying to call my phone. If the brand owner is authentically vested in, you know, in the creative process, you know, what you're going to come up with in, you know, from an atmosphere of that nature is something that is truly collaborative, you know, because they're going to produce something that they would have not normally, and neither will you, you know? So, yeah, there you go.
That's cool. Yeah. I think it's really an interesting combination. Now, I always see, like, you know, on the show Shark Tank, I don't know if you watch that show, but
not often, no.
You know, one of the things that I hear in there commonly is, you know, distribution. Like a lot of these people come up with a product, right? They create a product of whatever, and they get some online sales, and maybe they use social media, to get kind of the grassroots effort going and develop a business.
Right.
And then they go seek these guys out for an investment to take them to the main stage, right?
Right.
So distribution happens to be something that comes up a lot. So how do you guys distribute? Like, how do you sell your products? I know you mentioned brick and mortar. I'm sure there's probably an online component as well. How does that all work for you guys?
Well, I mean, Jason, distribution is always the golden carrot, right? This is the key ingredient. You can make the most amazing product that has ever existed, and if you can't distribute it, it's never going to see the light of day, right? So each industry that we operate in functions a little bit differently from one another in that arena. Alcohol being the most controlled and confusing of them all, in terms of the way that you're forced to distribute your product or work with distributors to distribute that product. Our jewelry product is sold online through our own e-commerce, as well as select doors with Nordstrom and other smaller specialty retail. And in many cases, some of our cigar lounges and cigar stores also carry a small assortment of our accessories. So we have some cross-pollination between the two categories there.
That's good. And where do you guys sell? Like, do you guys sell your cigars at other like regular cigar shops? Or
Oh yeah. We fulfill from our warehouse in Naples, Florida. We have several boots in that industry specifically. We have several boots on the ground sales agents in select territories around the country. I'm in I'm constantly leveraging my own personal relationships to keep sales moving, and of course always remaining responsible to the pull through of our product and market as well. That business specifically, if you were a salesperson in that business, you would be very akin to a vacuum salesman from 1950.
Oh wow!
Door to door, very old school, very much on a handshake. And that business is going through a great deal of changes right now, stepping into, being a very, very old school business, adapting to online, new government regulation, and this COVID scenario, I think, was really the catalyst for, the next several levels being, fast forwarded through. So, it's like, hey, welcome to 2030 premium cigar industry, overnight. So, it's going to be interesting to see, what happens in all of these, all the industries that we deal in, that one specifically over the next few years.
Yeah, that'll be really interesting. I mean, I'm sure you guys are already game planning on how you're going to approach it, but
we are.
I mean, the whole COVID scenario has really changed how so many businesses, mine included, how we function, right? And, and some parts of it may return back to normal at some point, right? But others, I think, through this adaptation, use of technology like Zoom and in those kinds of things, that might be just become the norm going forward.
Well, yeah, absolutely.
How do you guys? Oh, go ahead.
No, you first. You were about.
I was going to say, how are you guys projecting how kind of the future of your business is going to go from this?
Well, I'm working smarter and harder at the same time. This is not, there will not be a return to what once was, right? There will be a return to the new normal. And what does that landscape look like? How can I best forecast that to make the decisions now that are really going to make the rubber hit the road in the next 3-6 months to a year in that industry? A good deal of my promotion and activation up until this point was in market, in store, right? And which required a great deal of travel, which for lack of a better way to describe it, I guess I would say it constantly kept me in a state of kind of frantic movement. And when, you know, one of the three components of our business had my undivided attention, the other two did not, you know, and I was constantly triaging as to what was mission critical at any given moment, and even more difficult to do so when you are standing in a store face to face with customers for an afternoon. You're not doing anything except that, right? So this has opened the opportunity to the best of my ability, service my existing retail partners, participate in, you know, the myriad of new media that's out there in that industry, in that category, podcasts, interviews, etc., and really remain a bit more physically grounded so I can better manage at the same time all of the components of our business. So I think that the new look for me is less road time and more Zoom time, so to speak, if you wanted to abbreviate that, right?
Totally. Yeah, I think that's going to be the norm. I mean, I talk to other people who travel a lot for work, and, you know, there still is nothing that replaces that face-to-face human belly-to-belly interaction, right? But I think we're going to see that slow down quite a bit, you know, and it's going to be the Zoom stuff. Like, I mean, just as you were mentioning, like the efficiency standpoint, just for your time, right, and your focus, is huge. And, you know, if you were to throw in, you know, our meeting right now, and you had to jump on an airplane and go through security and check your bags and then get an Uber afterwards, you know, I mean, you're half a day of on and off an airplane before you do anything.
Absolutely.
You know?
Absolutely.
So a lot more efficiency. Tell us, you know, you're a Marine, and
yes,
once a Marine, always a Marine, right? And
thank you.
So what would you attribute as far as a relationship between your business now, how you function and operate? Is there any relationship to, you know, what you experienced or what you learned while you're active duty in the Marine Corps, and do you implement anything that you picked up there?
Absolutely. And every day, every single day, the influence from and the lessons that I took from my enlistment in the Marine Corps play themselves out on the stage of my business on a daily basis. You know, you know, as Yoda said, there is no try, there's only do. Try is why you fail. The Marine Corps has a very similar attitude towards anything that you are tasked with. It's just that you're going to do it, period. There is no explaining. There's no reason as to why, you know, you've come up short. You're just going to do it. And in business, and especially when you're piloting your own business, no one is going to do it for you. You know, all the heavy lifting is squarely loaded onto your shoulders every day. You know, and so, you know, interestingly enough, from my Marine Corps experience, actually one of the last jobs I had before I solely worked for myself, you know, I went from the Marine Corps into several different fields of work, but one was executive protection with a company named Gavin DeBecker and Associates. At the time, they were out of Studio City, and my Marine Corps experience parlayed perfectly into working for that company, but it was also within that company that I learned or was able to refine a bit of my email game structure from a business standpoint, how to basically morph my experiences and lessons learned in the Marine Corps into more of a professional setting. And it was honestly, you know, having no concept whatsoever that it was going to be applied in this manner. Looking back, for me personally, it was the perfect recipe. I couldn't have trained any better, you know, for what I do, honestly.
That's really inspiring. And what was your job in the Marine Corps?
I was a machine gunner. I was in weapons platoon in a line company, 3-7 India company for 4 years.
Nice. Did you deploy anywhere?
Just to the Far East. I was in 96 to 2000.
Okay.
got out on Valentine's Day, actually. We had filled out wills and packed bags, and my number never got called in that regard. So we did deploy several times, but not for that purpose.
That's good. That's good, man.
Yeah.
Kept you safe. So what's kind of the mantra in your business? I know, like, being a military person myself, having that, the mindset that you learned, from the military and discipline. Yeah. But I think more discipline to a process, and I think is one of the things that a lot of us that were in the military can attune some success to is, being disciplined to our processes. What's kind of the mantra in your business or processes that, you really stick to that might be something maybe beneficial for another entrepreneur to pick up on and learn if they were starting out on their own business?
Okay. Good question. I will start by answering this way. I think that I've heard more times than I would ever care to the phrase, if you do what you love, you never work a day in your life. And I have always said that whoever came up with that statement is a complete asshole because it's a very misleading statement.
Yeah.
I have always said, if you do what you love to make a living, you should hope to continue to love what it is that you do. Because many times business can muddy the water tremendously. And especially when you're working in a field that you are inspired to enter by, or that is fueled by passion, and I think that if you do find yourself wanting to take that leap of faith and delve into your own, endeavors, and especially ones that are fueled by passion, is to maintain a system of checks and balances personally, because it's very, very easy to become fatigued. And I don't just mean physically tired. I mean emotionally, spiritually, psychologically fatigued with what it is that you're doing. And I think that if you keep, in my, as it applies directly to myself personally,
yeah,
I always make sure that I'm designing something, that I am creating, because quite frankly, in the jewelry component of our business, it is almost that, the sales are to support my vice of design, right? Like I must monetize what I'm doing so that I can continue to do the portion of it that is fulfilling to me, and so I'm always making sure that I am maintaining some level of creativity. And I have fallen into slumps where I was not doing anything for our business that was fulfilling, and I was more carrying out mechanical process. And I had to check myself, because I realized I was doing myself and our business. I was doing. Sorry, I got to get a separate phone for these things, man. I got to get the podcast burner. I mean, it's like, I'm surprised only twice, right? Okay. So, where was I? Oh yeah. So I was doing nothing that was fulfilling. And this was a disservice to both myself and our business, because if I look back, it's that positive energy that's created by, for myself, that process that really helps to fuel a great deal of my efforts as it relates to our business. And, whether you're in tune with the energy of the universe, or however you describe that, during those patches where I was less than fulfilled, less positive things were occurring for our business at the same time, simultaneously. And immediately upon turning that around, doors are opening, lights are turning on, new opportunities are befalling us. And so I would just recommend, and I know that this is not, the most black and white, is somewhat intangible, what I'm saying, but it is real and it's critical. And I think that you need to maintain that balance in everything that you do. Otherwise, you'll become a victim of yourself.
Yeah, no, I totally get it. I mean, I have my own struggles with keeping the business part in check, right? Because so passionate about my business and building it and doing what we're doing, that oftentimes bleeds into personal life too much, right? Where it's just, it can consume all of you. And that's, I mean, from what you said, that's something that I take away personally from that, just as it relates to, chatting about the day at home with the wife, right? And, and it's just, sometimes it can just be so much work that there is more to our life beyond our passion or what we're pursuing professionally. And if the two are intermixed, great. But having that check and balance and being able to remove yourself. And if you don't, just exactly as you're saying, and it's so funny, you're hitting on so many points that rang true with me, like it can exhaust you. It absolutely can.
Absolutely.
Emotionally, physically, all that stuff. Because you're doing a profession that you're passionate about, doesn't mean you're going to be wildly successful day one. And it doesn't mean it's going to be easy.
Correct. Absolutely. So you're affixing hardship and challenge. You're hitching that wagon directly to the trailer hitch that's of passion, right?
Right.
So you have to be very respectful of that balance, and you have to manage it. I mean, you don't have to, but if you don't focus on managing that a little bit, you could find yourself not enjoying what you do anymore.
Right.
And actually losing the appetite for something that initially you were so passionate about, that it actually compelled you to do whatever it is that you're doing. So to keep that in mind and to remember.
Yeah, spot on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you can burn out. You sure can.
Mm-hmm.
What's next on the horizon for you guys in your company? Are you guys growing? You adding people? What's the next level for you?
Well, as you know, a couple things, some of our respective industries modify themselves, right, based on what's going on. I foresee adding at minimum 2 additional salespeople. Man, okay, that's the third. Wow. I even put the do not disturb, man. I even hit, it does nothing. It like doesn't stop them from calling in. So, adding a few people to help, bolster our distribution, and potentially adding at least one additional category of merchandise to our brand lineup. But that is undetermined at this time.
Gotcha.
But I think it will be in line with what the Dunhill of 2020 would have carried if they were the Dunhill of 2020. And, so I'm pretty excited, man. So more updates to come.
Cool. Well, I really like the niche and the space that you're in. I think there's something cool about tapping back into some of the nostalgic things that we used to do societally, and bringing that back, from having a cigar and, the fine suits and hanging out and the old school barber shops and, things like that. I think there's a certain nostalgia, and there really is a cool sense of, I think, peace as you're enjoying it, right?
Absolutely.
And we've gotten so fast paced, and I call it kind of like the microwave effect. Like we just need everything instant right now. I don't have time for this, I don't have time for that. And you just got to slow down and enjoy some of this stuff, because it's cool. And I think what you guys are doing is really awesome, and your brand and stuff. So
thank you.
Yeah, thanks for sharing it with us. It's really cool. Where can people check you out online? Is there a good website for you guys?
On the gram, as the kids are saying these days, the Instagram is a phenomenal place to find all of our exploits, filleted open for your viewing pleasure. You have Room 101 brand, which focuses on our bespoke jewelry studio in Los Angeles. You have Room 101 cigars and Room 101 gin. And then, of course, you have my own personal. You can find me at Matt Booth through my, you can't miss it. And my personal is actually kind of a nucleus of everything that we're involved in. So,
gotcha. Okay.
And then they will splinter you out to the applicable websites and all that.
That's really cool. Well, Matt, thanks a lot, man, for being on the show. It was really cool to sit down with another veteran and learn about your business. It's exciting. I hope that it was helpful for our listeners and our guests. Pick up a couple of good nuggets. I know I certainly did. And if there's anybody listening who's looking to move into like that entrepreneurial space, a lot of good takeaways from our chat today, Matt. So thank you so much for joining us on the show.
No, I appreciate you taking the time and for the consideration.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you guys need to, if anybody has any questions, you can reach out to me at valoanguy.us and get you connected with Matt and answer any questions that you might have. So thanks everybody for stopping by today and checking out another episode of Armed and Ready Podcast.